Is that your new toy journey background?
That's my new toy.
Okay. Now, I'm going to put this, when I put this on screen, I lose your pic. When I put it on the slideshow on, I'll lose your picture. So what I'm going to cheat. And actually, maybe we'll go side by side. Let's have a look. What happens if I do this? You just see the slides, but I don't see you. So look, I'll do that anyway, and I'll kick in later. Then if I go escape, I can have both worlds. No, we'll do it like this. But now, what I want to do is explain. We're going to use the peak performance indicator concept to create our ID first aid kit, and to that end, you need to know your ID first of all. And then you know where the scores are. But I want to explain actually how it links in with recent, when I say recent, the last 20 years of brain research, that in fact ID is actually helping us to reduce stress and anxiety and remove the consequences of depression by replacing things in our brain, meaning perspective. We're changing perspective and going, oh, this is just that. Oh, I just need that. So when we go into looking at your drives, you'll realize each of the drives has particular needs, and those needs are innate. And that's, I'm going to share screen with you now so you can see that. Just a minute. Boink. Screen share. And I want to share that one. Okay. So you guys will be over on the side. There we go. So I don't know how big that is for you, but if I make it full screen for me, I won't be able to see your faces. So is that, can you see the onion skins picture there? Ian?
Here we can. Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
It's big enough. So, okay. Before we go into the details, everyone make a little note to yourself about what you would call your peak performance score. And don't necessarily have to share it right now, but know what it is so that we can refer to it later. So where you're coming in this morning in terms of being true to yourself, living your ID, having a real sense of in stride confidence and performance in such a way that your self-esteem's high, you got plenty of energy that. So knowing that peak performance is a measure of the state you're in and how you're dealing with the world around you. And we give it a number out of 10. And those who've been on the calls before, you know, we have people call it out. I want you to keep that to yourself this time and note any change that happens as a result of us working with the first aid kit. Okay, so it's going to be a test. So I need a before and an after. And Ian, can you please make a note to yourself to remind me to ask about it after?
Okay.
We all know me. So now, where we're going to go is the fact that there's a constant battle in our minds between being true to ourselves and fitting in with others. And I call this the basic conflict that we have in life is, how do I live the way I know I need to live in a way that's true for me and is fulfilling, and it keeps me safe, and it keeps me happy and keeps me productive, and fit in with all the different demands that come from living with other people with different values and so forth. And the shortcut version of that we use in the peak performance. We say the employers and we have, the parents we've had, and the family, the people we live with, our spouses, and the society we live in. This list can get very big. They can pull us away from ourselves and make us out of stride. And we're suggesting that's the symptoms of stress, that sense of out of stride. And one of the first things to go when you're not doing things true for you is energy for this thing. When I say energy, I mean interest, clarity, a sense of continuation. Let's do this. A bit of interest in it, like, oh, really? So you might be curious, you might be excited, you might be just focused, but you're there. You're 100% present. And that's a form of energy, that your energy is going to this task. And when things start to not match the way you do things, what you expect from them or what you expect from the world around you and expect from yourself, you're out of stride because it ain't right. Something's missing. So if we're familiar with that, uh, what that means is I need to know when I'm out of stride, first of all. I need to know what's going on. And all of us have got symptoms. So if you could make a little note to yourself, when things aren't right for you, what are your early warning signals that it's not right, that something's missing, that you're not in your zone, that the energy's dropped, and maybe you're even getting a sore throat, or the rash has started, or you're getting a headache or something like that. So be aware, what is your indicators that say, I'm in my zone, I am going for my peak or not? First thing's energy. Along with that, could I say first, it could be along with it or next, is self-talk. What are you saying to yourself? How are you describing the situation? Are you going into moan, groan, complain? You're blaming others, or are you going, oh my God, I never could do this? So those are symptoms. Your energy level and your self-talk are symptoms of where you are when you're out of stride, your early warning signals. And that's the first sign. If you don't recognize it internally, then you start to do things where everyone outside you knows you're out of stride. You throw things, or you fold your arms, or you get sarcastic, or you just get really quiet, or you sort of say, So what's your external signals that you're not being the best you could be? So is this making sense? Internal and external signals? You with me so far, guys? Okay. Now, I'm just going to give you two things about how the brain works, and much of this stuff comes from a science degree I got years ago, but more importantly, recent research and brain research that's been going over the last 20 years. And the guru for me on that is a Dr. Robert Sapolsky, and he works out of Stanford. He's got a lot of stuff on YouTube, and I've got a link down there. When you get these slides, you'll see that. And so this is buckets of research backing this up. Some of you are already familiar with the triune brain. It's actually, in a fashion, a quadrine brain, because the neocortex and cortex are actually different functions. But that model that was done by McLean back in the 60s is a metaphor, right? The brain really isn't in 3 or 4 layers. They talk to each other, and they're all but it's great to understand it. So let's go, being at peak performance and my first aid kit, what we're talking about from a brain point of view is the cortex, which does decision making and thinking and planning and creating, is a separate function from physical reception of information. The cortex itself, the neocortex, does the real planning, thinking. It thinks ahead, it goes, solves problems, and so forth. This is the part that controls your limbs and brings in information from your senses and says, okay, this is now red and this is blue, or it's hot today, and so forth. The amygdala is a part of the midbrain, or the limbic system, the hypothalamus and all those. These guys I want you to think of as the gatekeepers. They're the ones that take this input and decide whether it's a threat or it's an attractive thing to do. It's safe or it's neutral. So it's like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what that means. Then you go up to cortex. So when you're in a state of curiosity, you go up to cortex to go, let me figure this out. And you use all the sensory input you can, you do some research, you sit there, but you're more observing than you are reacting. You're more gathering. If the amygdala, well, the amygdala is only one of the parts. If the limbic system decides, oh my God, this is just like that time, the way my father used to talk to me. No, I'm not going to go. This guy, why doesn't he shut up? It's deciding it's a not attractive place, or you're going, I can't do this. So your brain now is kicking in to saying out of stride, out of stride, out of stride. When that signal comes in, it does one of two things. It goes down to the brain stem, which is the simplest of the brain in terms of responses, because it's got just 3 responses: attack, hide, or run away. So we call it fight, flight, or fright. And fright is just you freeze, you're hiding. Flight, run away, and fright and fight, of course, is you go to battle, right? So when the amygdala or the limbic system decides that this is and reminds you of, or could be, a threat of any kind, then you start getting some reactions. And the physiological reactions you're getting are pretty standard. Now think of it, you were in a place of the Savannah Desert 10,000 years ago, and you were seeing a herd of wildebeest come on you, and these reactions to that stress, when the midbrain perceives a threat, this is what happens in the body. So you quickly get a blood sugar into your bloodstream so you can get your muscles working. Your cardiovascular ramps up, blood pressure, heart rate, respiration, so you can get oxygen to every place it needs it. You shut down anything going on with digestion, reproduction, or growth. No time for that. If you just had lunch, you shut down that because you could be lunch, right? So you're going to cut everything back down because you got to run, right? And then you have an enhanced immune response. So anything happened to you, you can, your drills are in you can, not bleed so much and so forth like that. And you're more aware of what's going on around you. This heightened awareness and this heightened cardiovascular is what we call the stress reaction. Now, here's the kicker, though. That reaction is the same, physiologically identical to you being chased by wildebeest as it is to going, oh my God, I forgot to put the tax in. Oh no, that bill's coming up soon. Oh, I can't pay this. I can't go to the doctor now. Oh my God, I missed the bus. Get this, our day-to-day out of stride, things that aren't right for us, our sense of, oh no, stress, those symptoms we mentioned earlier, those to the brain are the same as you being in physical threat. I need to know does anyone want to question that or ask about that? Because this is like key to this. So y'all, I don't know if some of you have already done all this reading and you're going, oh, Greg, for God's sakes, we already know this, but I have to get a baseline, right? So what I'm saying is that the brain, through this limbic system, perceives either, and here's the kicker, an imagined threat or a real threat as the same. So I can work myself into a tittle, absolute breakdown, sweat and heart pumping and a sense of absolute bewilderment or danger just by remembering an event or by anticipating an event or interpreting this event as one of those. It doesn't have to really be happening. It's a classic example. You might be involved in some like a court case and something's going to come up eventually and you're going to be called as a witness and you've been called as a witness. You don't know what you're going to say. You're real worried. And it's not for another 3 months, right? But every time you think of that and the stress of being on that witness stand, you have the same reaction as if you were on the witness stand, but it's actually probably worse because you make it worse in your mind, right? And when you're actually in it, and the thing's actually happening, the body's going, oh, there are wildebeest. They are there. And you actually probably handle it a lot better. So first of all, is our imagined perception of the world has the same physical reaction as a real one. And if it doesn't get a chance to use all this reaction, meaning we got all this sugar in there, we got all this blood pressure going up, we got respiration going up, we digestion shut down. If you then can go run or fight or do something with this, or breathe, relax, and go, threats over, not happening now, not happening now. Then the body will stop this pumping in, it'll stop it. But if you keep it running or remember it 6 times during the day and keep it rocking, these things here all lead to these 7 here. Just coincidentally 7, by the way, they're not directly related. But these are the top killers in our community, in our current life, and they are directly related to a stress reaction not being needed and not being used. Okay, are we good with that? Any questions at all? Any questions at all? Can I take that as
I have a question.
Great.
On the other hand, or perhaps hand in hand with that, isn't there a certain level of stress that we actually enjoy and get off on that has very similar sort of physiological response, but it's about, the excitement of going down the slope on our skis or those sort of things. How does that fit in?
Okay, it fits in exactly as a great example. Thanks, Jose. For my God, I'm going to go down the glacier at Whistler. And whoa, it's going to need some turns. So you've got heightened awareness, cardiovascular, your energy's pumping, and then you go down. The difference is that's the body doesn't know it's good or bad. It just feels that sense of and then you go physically into it and you use up all of this reaction and you don't build up the hypertension and so forth. So you get into the game, you do the swimming, you do the ski, you jump with the hang glider, you do the run. And that's exactly what we're designed for, because that little bit of stress just before those actions with this enhanced sensory reception and cognition and none of this shut down and we got more blood, we're primed to do something. This is perfect. And the little excitement, like it could be like you're getting to do a talk. It could be Paul's asked you to host one of these mornings and you then are there, it's on, okay. But in the doing of it, these are all used and you don't build up the stress consequences. Great question.
A couple of points on that.
Yeah.
One of them is the second example you gave us. That's positive stress because you had the choice to do that run down the hill on the ski or this presentation. Whereas negative stress is where you don't have a choice over that. That's happening to you.
Yes. Right. So
that the other one is. Just one other one. My wife had a run-in with cancer many years ago, and we did the naturopathic as much as the surgery. And there's a lady came out and gave a presentation, and exactly as you say, number 7, cancer is caused through dis-ease. And her presentation said that back in the caveman hunter-gatherer days, we'd have 7 to 10 fight, flight, fright negative experiences. Whereas in the modern world we live in, we can have up to 1,000 a day.
Yes, that's the key. And positive and negative stress is a good way to think about it because it's like, did I choose this or not? But the midbrain is not necessarily picking up on that. It's picking up on what the fear part of that is. It's the fear regulator. What happens when you are getting that same, I chose to go down this run because my mates are all going. And then when people freeze, then the midbrain's not thinking it's a fun thing at all. So somehow it got overridden. And to get those people going, sometimes you have to go, just jump, and then when you're in it, you get the reaction. And one of the biggest dangers of having cancers or hypertension or things where or overweight, when you've got this thing, is what you're saying and doing with yourself with that thing, right? And a lot of cancer treatment is reprogramming your mind towards stuff and resetting a goal and getting yourself as healthy as possible. And that has to happen by a change of perception of the cancer. If you keep thinking the cancer is your enemy and just going to kill you, well, then the stress continues. Does that make sense, Jim?
Yep.
All right. Now we're going to bring it to ID in a minute. But I just want you to know that when you're going back to what I originally asked you, what are your early warning signals for when you're out of stride? I'm going to suggest that a lot of those are in two buckets. One is the physiological aspect of it, and this is some of these things here. But the other one's the mental one, is how you're perceiving it and whether or not you're calling it good or bad consciously or not. So we're going to go into each drive combo. I'll show you. We're going to go down and just look at some samples, and then I'm going to ask you guys to give us some examples from your lives. For each drive, the idea of your first aid kit are these steps I'm suggesting, right? So that after we've done this session, you guys can go away and play with this. Knowing the sorts of things that are going to make you anxious ahead of time, one of the best stress releasers or the managing of the stress is when you know something's coming, it's less of a stress than often when you're surprised by it, particularly for down yellow and up pink drives, right? The down improvise and the use complete drives. And there's lots and lots of studies with rats as well as humans showing people doing something, a quiz, and then they get it wrong and they get a shock. And when they know that the shock is going to come possibly, the stress levels in their body actually are less, even though it's the same shock, right? And there's another great study that showed if I could take a big shock now, I won't get a lot of unknown little shocks later. people will take the big shot and say, give me the hit. And it's actually worse than the other ones, but because it's done, I can handle that. So knowing what makes you and being forewarned is one of the best strategies for your first aid kit. Is like, don't step in it, right? That's that part. But let's say you didn't know it. What are your early warning signals that say, oh my God, I'm there? Internally, dialogue, what you're thinking, and physiologically. And then, okay, so that means I know it. The sooner I can know it, the quicker I get the signals, the less it's affecting my body, the less chemical, hormonal secretions and tightening and blood flow and all that's happening. So what we're going to go through is some ideas of just certain drives, what would tend to make certain drives anxious, and you guys with those drives are going to confirm or deny how those are. What are some of the signals that you get? And I want to really use the group to say, how often is that the same for certain drive, like do authenticates know a certain way, do verifies know a different way when they're stressed? I've never really had that discussion with a group. Like, what does my drive use as its signals, or is that more a personality onion skins thing? So then we're going to look at that. And finally, here are the real strategies. Once you know what this is doing and how it's impacting you, okay, well, this is slowing me down, I can't do that, and so forth like that. The moment, by the way, that you do 3, if you're in the middle of a situation and you go, hang on, what impact is this having on, what are my early warning signals, and then what impact is it having? You have to move from your midbrain to your cortex to answer that question, right? So it's an immediate stress releaser in a fashion as soon as you go into answering questions, because only the cortex can answer questions. If you just make statements, oh God, this is horrible. Oh no, they'll never do this. Oh, I don't know what to do. Then your limbic system goes, gotcha, more fear coming up. All right, you don't know what to do. Okay, we'll keep stressing you, right? So the moment you start looking at a stressful situation, go, what's going on here? Where'd this come from? How long is that? Then you go into ID. So anyone can do that without ID, but we got a gift we can use. We then go, okay, hang on, wait a minute. What needs of mine are missing right now? This is one of your biggest instinctive drive tool. Anyone can use the first 3. But this is what we have as a tool that allows us to go and look, what bucket are we looking in? What's missing? We're going to do some practice on that. And then we go, okay, well, if that's missing, now let's get creative. How do I put those needs back and deal with the situation, work with others? And then we start getting into strategies. And those of us who have done this for a while, the gift that we bring to people is a wealth of strategies for a range of drives. And we help people put themselves back into stride by mainly, I got to tell you, changing your perspective on the situation, seeing it differently. So those steps, I can't do a split screen, but we want to go to these examples, but I'll remember them. In fact, maybe if someone wants to put them in the chat, so you've got to take a photo of that, I don't know. But we're going to do some samples of the drives, what would make them anxious, what might be the signals they get, and then we would look for, in a situation, what needs are missing. So are we good to go on that? Anyone have any questions on that? And can we get into some action with that? Or does anyone have a question they want to clear up? Anything I need to know from the chat, Ian?
All quiet in the chat, Greg.
Okay. You know, I grew up training live with people, so I would read the symptoms of the room and go, oh, that's where we are. And I got to say, I'm not good at wondering. so please, either through a chat or through a speak up, if I'm losing you or it doesn't make sense, or more importantly, you have a great question on it, then please let me know. All right. Let's start with up, down, up, down. So anyone who's got versions of Jane there, you might have a longer down green or a higher up pink or a higher down yellow, but just stick with this for a moment. I actually had a session the other day doing with a family of good friends, and the kids finally did their ID and they're in their late teens, early 20s, and whatever. And we had direct opposites on some of them, and it was interesting going back in their history of knowing for the time how this had played out before they knew their ID and what would stress them. So if we look at someone with starting with the verified drive, but what would be something that would send them out of stride is they can't identify the problem they need to solve, or they're having to do something that doesn't have a priority, or there's no purpose behind it. We don't know why we're doing this. Why? And that lack of answer to the why will throw them off. And then if it's related to anything, as Jim was saying, that's also got some negative consequences, then the reaction is going to be even stronger to find that problem or to find that purpose or so forth. So when a verified drive can't see purpose or direction, or problem or a priority with something, or they can't get it right, they know it's a problem, but they don't have the power, the resources, or the support to make it right. And they have to live in it knowing it's wrong, knowing it's not the best, knowing it could be improved. That's a form of stress. So as a 70, Grant, you're my go-to guy on this. Can you confirm one way or the other what are the things that will set you off, and how do you know we could use the word stress, we'll use out of stride?
Yeah, it's actually really relevant for me right now. I've had a recent example at work where specific items weren't done right, and that's right in my interpretation, not necessarily anyone else's interpretation. And I got highly frustrated, and it was one of my direct reports, and I didn't intervene on myself anywhere near as quickly as I should have, and it created a lot of friction and tension between me and the guy that I work with. And when I eventually had a time of reflection, I realized that, one, I gained perspective, understanding why I thought it was right or not right, or whatever the case may be, but I was then able to go back to the guy that I work with and explain to him in very simple terms what my drive is, what my instinctive drives are, and he was able to replay it back perfectly in terms of how he saw it play out. And then he was brave enough to talk about the impact it had on him, and it was a very, very, it ended up being a fantastic learning for myself, but also a fantastic outcome on the relationship. But to answer your question, I was almost driven to distraction about this particular thing not being right. It drove me nuts, and so the emotion was frustration, and to the point where I was just thinking, this is nuts. Like, do I have to do everything myself? And and that's what it was. It was about thing. And you know what? When I gained perspective on that situation, Greg, I was able to stand back and say, you know what? Really, am I going to stop the world over that? And,
right. Yeah.
And it was a really, very humbling experience to go through that.
You know what? If we look at from an ID drive, from the 3 P's of the verify, which is what problem we work on, what's the purpose, and what priority. You shifted on all 3 of those. It become less of a priority. It was not as big of a problem, right? And there was a bigger purpose going, the relationship with you and your work. Yeah. So that waits for all of us. That's what's on the other side. When we go back and go, what's missing with my drives? How do I put that back? Now, it can't happen if you stay in the same perception you had of it. If something's got to go, stop. Right? Something's got to go, hang on. And I think our early warning signals are our gift to ourselves to make a stop if we listen to them.
Yes.
Right? Like, instead of going, I'm frustrated and I'm upset, so let's go faster.
Well, that was my response. I just went into hyperdrive. And so the other thing that affects me, I don't know if this is just a verify thing, but I was losing sleep over it. And I allowed myself to get to like night 3 of not sleeping properly. I'm like, this is crazy. Like, this is nuts.
This is good.
Yeah, so it's definitely a case of not picking up the early warning signs.
Yeah. And what's got to happen is you have to have now a bigger problem. So just know, verifiers, that you won't just consciously go, oh, I'm being outrageous about this, I need to change my perspective. I'll just use that great model Greg gave us, right? You're in the midbrain, you're in the limbic system. So something's got to kick your limbic system out, and what that often is, and I think this relates to down yellow as well. you need a bigger problem. You need a bigger danger or something that makes you go, whoa, I'm not getting this. I've been thinking about that. I got to stop this. And I think that may be the sequence some of us has to do. It's, well, when we've had some workshops and the people who say, but that drive says they should care for others and or that they are aware of risk. And I just look at them and react. I go, ain't a risk for them yet. You know, like, it's like we all talk about the harmony of a peak up, you know, you go, but she's just bailed that person. Yep. Don't need harmony with that person. You know, she's not on the radar. It's like, oh, so when you look at what your drive really needs, the definition of what your drive needs has to be looked at. What's the bigger problem? And I often wish this on my clients. I like to say, for you to learn quicker from situations, I hope things get bad quicker for you. You know, because it'll force you to do something sooner. So just know that the midbrain is dealing with threats. If this threat you've got is the only one, it puts all the cortex attention on that. If there's a bigger threat or a bigger problem. And so what we often say is, well, what drives missing? And strategies. One of the strategies is who else is involved? Who else is this impacting? What's the long-term consequences? You need to get bigger than the problem. To do that, you're already moving into your cortex. Now, can we have anyone else with verified drive want to chip in on how you know and what it is that throws you out and how you bring yourself back? What's your kit for your first aid kit? What? You're gonna do this to me now after all I've given you?
No, Greg, back to basics.
Thanks, Peter.
Back to basics. Do the basics right. Don't make it complicated. Do the simple things. Do them right.
Right.
And that's it. Yep.
Yeah. That's a great grounding thing, because to go back to basics, you got to think, well, what are basics? You get to work and your brain gets re-engaged from the midbrain up to the cortex into solving things and doing things. Can we add on let's do this combo, the up, verify, and avoid improvise together. Don't worry, completes. We're going to get to you. Okay, I'm saving you for a bit. So, can people that have this combo? I'll throw myself out there first, and then you tell me where it's true. So it may not be this extreme, but what we would do is look at what would throw this drive out, and it would be everything we already said, what Grant was saying, but we would add on future and present danger. And this is the key here, is these guys aren't dealing with necessarily immediate danger. It's the possibility of, it's the consequence from, it's a what could happen. And they will awfulize a situation to make sure they're not surprised by it. Remember, we'd like a big hit first, and then we take that big hit, better than a lot of little hits along the way. So sometimes you will hear a down yellow describe a situation that everyone else is kind of going, well, this is pretty bad, but you know, we'll deal with it. Go, no, the world's ending, you know, because they're awfulizing it to a point where they can handle that worst case, then they can work back from that and deal with what we've got here. So can someone either just down yellow, or but I like the combo. You've seen something's wrong, it's not working, it isn't living up to standard. And also, then there's this also as well. What's the world like for you guys in terms of how you know you're out of stride, and what brings you back? What do you need to do in terms of recognizing which drive's missing and put something back? So I'll need a bold person now.
Well, Greg, do you want me to give it a punt?
Go, son.
There's a, you know, my 7643, the 7 and the 3. A thing you didn't address, you're looking forward to danger in the future and consequence of the danger, etc. The thing with our drive is we've also got a scorecard of history. And the trick is, we fill in the scorecard as a situation develops. And we've got a firm historical set of facts as to how a situation has developed. And we start reacting to those facts. And, you know, it might be an agenda in a meeting which suddenly expands, and somebody slaps on the table a whole lot of new facts that are totally at odds with the actual history and the facts of history. Now, there's nothing more infuriating to one of us where the goalposts are moved and there's a whole lot of new crap on the agenda, you know?
Sorry, Dave, I'm just looking at all the faces of those people, those drives laughing now. So you're hitting a chord, son.
Yeah. So the trick is there. You really need a reset button, which goes forward rather than looking back at the facts. So you've almost got to say, okay, let's start this all over again and write a new agenda, be it in your mind or be it on paper or be it whatever, and start brand new. Because history can be quite destructive. And you really dig a trench on it, you know? And
That's
it's a real battle of the Somme. And
That's
we all know
brilliant.
where that went.
What I'm hearing both of you say is that there needs to be a reset. It needs to be a reassessment of the situation. Okay, whoa. What are we here for? Whoa, what's the bigger picture? And you have to go back to, and if I'm using drives, go back to bigger purpose and go back to bigger dangers or ultimate consequences that are bigger than just this moment. And that might be a universal solution, that you got to get bigger than this moment to look back and put it in perspective, and then just start a new plan or a new format or reassess what the steps are. Does anyone else want to add to that? But what Doug said rings true for you too?
Yes, it's Leonie here. And sorry, I don't have a camera this morning. But absolutely true. But I think to add to that, the reset happens if you know that the risks are being taken seriously. So I think it's hard to reset if you don't feel like it's actually being taken seriously. And often you don't want to be the person that lives in history, would prefer to be the person that moves forward, but it's really hard to let go of that history if you are worried that the moving forward won't deal adequately with the risk.
Right, what a brilliant point. Because it hasn't been dealt with, you're saying. It's like, they just heard you, oh, Leonie, we hear you, thanks, now next. Like, it's still the problem, right? Is that what you're saying? It just hasn't been solved yet? We haven't even taken it seriously as something to deal with.
Yes, and that is a risk.
Yes, that's the key with the down yellow. It's a risk that will come and haunt us, or it's going to show up. And I think what's one of the things that goes on when someone else is not picking up that you've got this perspective and they're not sharing it. And this is part of your first aid kit, everyone. When you're feeling pushback, someone's pushing back against you, and they're not sharing your perspective of this problem or this opportunity. It could be both ways, yellow up. It could be, we're missing an opportunity. So the same sense of stress, or we're missing a danger. The pushback from them means that they don't share your definition of this problem, your perspective of this problem. So when I say to you before, when you're out of stride, find out what's missing, I want to use that same tool, but I want you focusing the attention on them, meaning, geez, what's missing for them that they don't see this? Where are they that this isn't as obvious? And that would mean you would need to shut up for a while and do some quizzing, some checking in, some detective work. Does that make sense? Like, you just get off well, hang on, why are they pushing back so hard? Now, look what happens in your midbrain. The moment you go to finding out where they're at, what's missing for them, what's their concern, why are they so blasé, or why are they so upset? What part of the brain can only do that? What only can do that? The cortex, the neocortex. So as soon as you are going into detective mode, one of your first aid kit stress releases, you're moving yourself out of the limbic system into the cortex. You still might be doing it with a feeling of trepidation, or you still might be feeling a bit pissed off or whatever. But if you can keep the questions as neutral as possible, like for example, here's one where the questions looks like cortex, but it's really your brainstem speaking. A question like, why the hell do you think that? Well, Greg, it was a question, like, yeah, you're kind of missing the point here, right? So when you move to questions which are really trying to understand and explain their pushback, their resistance, or their excitement for something you can't get excited about, or their unwillingness to look at something, the moment you're in that mode, you have to move out of your own stress, and you get more creative, you are more acute, and your questions will be, can lead more to a solution. And it has the other benefit is you're stopping pushing back against them, so they don't have to push back against you. Judy, I'm going to call on some of you and your pals with the pink ups now. So I want to make sure I give you some warning, and you can get your ducks in a row. By the way, I love your haircut. So
Thank you.
This drive, whether it's with others, like this is a particularly full drive in getting things right, which is a polite way of saying there's a lot of things that could stress this drive, okay? If you have strong up, strong down, if you've got 4 strong drives, it means you've got the potential to get hooked by a lot of things that aren't right, because you've got a lot of standards that you want to maintain for all brilliant reasons, right? We're not apologizing for it, but it means that many things can go wrong very easily. And with the peak drive, the complete drive, using the complete drive, the nickname for that is whole. It has to keep everything whole, keep it running together, running smoothly. There's harmony between the parts. The parts all fit. It's like my wife's description of a great party at the end was it all ran smoothly. My description with my big green up and the pink down is that we had fun and we got things done and people met each other, right? And might have run out of food, or someone might have fell on the step and sprained his ankle, but it was a fun night, right? So know that this drives symptoms. What are your symptoms? Either one of you who want to speak for the pink up. What are the sorts of things that are going on internally that oh, I'm losing it now, and what usually is missing that would need you to reach for your first aid kit? Then we'll move to, and what do you do about it? So go ahead, Kit.
I was just going to jump in there, Greg, and say probably one of the big things with Use Complete is worry. Is start to worry about all the things that are going to go wrong. So that's, and I think the more out of stride you are, the more you worry. Because
exactly, it spirals down.
It spirals. So you've got that sort of, oh, that could go wrong and that could go wrong. And then everything, it's almost like you see potential dangers in everything. So it becomes a real, and it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy too, because you can make it fail, if you get yourself into that position. So I mean, for me, it's usually very, I feel it in the chest, a tightness in the chest, a tension, often shallow breathing. So you're not breathing. So, that's a great one to come back, start deep, breathe deeply, relax, start to do. And sometimes you've got to call on the other drives and start almost then making what's the worst thing that could happen and plan back from there, and then start to rationalize it. But it's definitely worry. I sort of feel with the Use Complete is a big one, anticipating all the stuff that can go wrong, could go wrong.
And sometimes does the worry work to your favor, where you get so overwhelmed with worry you go, I can't keep this going. I gotta get out of here and start figuring something out. Then you start looking at priorities. There's other situations. You get out of it in a sense because you need to find a way out. Like it's just spiraling down.
Exactly, and you kick in. I mean, for me, I'd go into my Verify drive. What's really important here? What really has to get done? Is this
right.
if this did happen, how would I fix it?
Yes.
So you start putting solutions into place for those worst case scenarios, and basically decatastrophizing everything.
Okay. Yes,
that's where you would go.
All right. I've realized I didn't write one of the other strategies for your first aid kit on the slide I showed you before, but I'm going to tell it to you in a minute after we hear from Judy.
you know, because my complete drive is so strong, I mean, the worry is there, but last year when I was so sick and, you know, I just didn't have any energy. And so even though I would think about, you know, I have to do something, I was just lost, truly just lost. And now that I am well, every day, multiple times, I'm expressing my gratitude to nobody, you know, because I live alone. I'm just saying, oh, I'm so grateful for this. And I have, now that I am over being sick and my former husband, Joe, is no longer causing a lot of stress, I'm discovering a lot of things and thinking to myself, you know, when I was a teenager, because I was an only child, I thought, I want to have my own family. I want my own family. And so I'm not by myself. And that was probably one of the biggest mistakes I ever made in my life. Because I realized I'd probably been better off if I would have, I don't know, done something differently. But now I live alone and I'm happy as can be. I'm happier than I've ever been in my life.
Okay.
Because
Well,
I have harmony. I can complete things. You know, I can be moving and grooving for whatever number of hours I want every day. And it is cool.
You made a point I wanted to remind everyone of is when for some drives, and I think it might be the pink yellow combination being hit into it. Sometimes you need to get to overwhelm to get the reset. Things have got to get bad enough to push the button, because these drives are persistent. They'll try and fix it. They'll try and put them together. They'll do this. They'll give up themselves to make it work, to the point where they exhaust themselves and they almost have to be able to then do a reset. Is that fair to say for you to have that combo with the pink up and the yellow down, that sometimes you've just got to get into overwhelm and finally only you yourself can give up, because no one else can make you do that? Is that a fair call for you with that, anyone who's got that combo of pink up and yellow down?
I think it is, but I think it's very true, Greg. But I suppose there's a rider there, if you like. You've also got to watch out that I think it can go too far, because there's a point at which you actually can't see your way out.
Yes.
And that's so I think, you know, obviously the power of one, knowing your ID, but also then knowing, you know what pulls you out and bringing yourself back, is at what point you've got to do something. Because I would suggest that, you know, there'd be people out there that could just, they go so far down, there is no way, they almost wouldn't know the way back.
Yes. Yeah. So. Judy mentioned the thing about being in a snowstorm and there is no direction. If someone says change something, you have no idea what to change, right? And I think one of the things I want this call to give people, particularly with that combo, is know that the longer you leave it, the more likelihood it is you will get so overwhelmed you can't change. And the thing we're looking, and so I need to move to the strategy that I didn't write down that is part of the strategy. When you're, and this particularly relates to this drive, when it looks like when you're in this stress situation, you're feeling all the symptoms of what we listed before. One of the things we said is which drive's missing. The other question that goes with that is which drive is present. What it means is which aspects of this drive are already actually okay. So from the complete drive, hang on, what is already in harmony? What don't I need to change? What is okay already fitting well together? You look for what is working, what is functioning, what is right. So in every one of our drives, there's something that we need. And so grants and the verified ups would go, all right, hang on, what is already solved, or what is already a clear problem? What is a purpose that we got? What are we really here for? And you even use that as examples. You went bigger to, wait, what am I doing here? So what what is already fulfilling your drive, go to those areas and go, okay, I got this. And that becomes your new base. That becomes your new thing to stand on, to look around. For the pink ups, your sense of, hang on, what don't I need to fix? What or repair? That was my green drive speaking out. What don't I need to put together? What don't I need to solve or look after? And then the other one for the yellow down is weighing on what's not safe, what is reliable here, what can I count on? And for those of you I've worked with before in the past, oftentimes what we do is you reach out to someone else. You reach out to go, okay, I just want another perspective here. I know my head's spinning me on this. I need to hear someone else hear me outside. And I think that's true for all drives. So one of the universal first aid kits is acknowledge you need first aid and look for a first aid person, right? Like go, who already knows me, who already cares about me, who already would listen to this, and who would let me just talk without trying to fix it too quickly. And all that's my baseline. Where is it already working for me? Where are the drives already being met? And that's the other part of this. First, what's missing? I know what's missing, and I go, okay, well, that's missing, but where is it not missing? And look for what I use as a bound foundation. Because the purpose of the first aid kit is not to solve the original problem. It's to get you out of danger and get the wound sealed and get you away from the wreck so that you can go then address things. So this is the kit to go, what do I do when I don't know what to do? All right, I have to stop. I have to have a breath. All right. Now I better go check in with someone else. So I want you to, at the end of this call, as you go through the day, make like 3 or 4 steps from what you've been listening to or just reflecting yourself. What's my first aid kit when I'm really stuck and lost and I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to do? What do I know I need to do based on my ID and my history of my world? Because I got to say, when I meet people that are older with their drives and have learned perspective with the planet to mix with it, maybe there's the onion skins, they use their drives more judiciously because they're not blaming the planet. It's like, this is me again. There I go, And so I want you to have a kit that goes, like for me, for example, I'm close to this drive here, except that that's a 2 and that's an 8, right? That's a 6 and that's a 5. So what I do is I go, okay, what's the best use of me right now? What's the best use of me? Gets me out of being trapped. I'm trapped here somehow. It's not moving. I feel stuck and I feel like I'm wasting my time and not being useful. And most of the time when I'm feeling useful or not productive or I'm out of stride, I find that my attention's too much on me. And I'm looking at what I'm missing and what's wrong with me. And the solution for me is what's the best use of me? And I look out and find out can I be of service somewhere else? And being of service in any even small way somewhere else, like going and picking up the garbage that someone else dropped on the street. I mean, like just it could be anything to get me out of my attention on me. And I think that's a thing that then is meaning we're moving to cortex. So I want you to leave today with the idea that you have triune brain. You keep you in that middle brain by feeding stuff. And one of the reasons why positive thinking works, when you look, I remember through the 70s and 80s, we were just besotted with the idea of positive thinking. If you can think, you can, then you can, and it worked for some people and not others. I think one of the things from a brain study that shows is if you change that internal dialogue to I can and it will and I might, you're moving up out of the doomsday perspective, but you haven't changed the world yet. You're just changing your perspective of the world, which gives you more options and more openness and more possibility. So can anyone who's been listening to this, can you tell me if it's been any use? Help my green go here, but also how you might use this morning's session, and if your number changed when we did at the beginning, where you thought your peak performance was and where it is now. So I'd just like to hear from some of you, short and sharp, so we can hear as many as we can. And if I'd like to stop the screen share so that I can see your faces too.
All right, can I go?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I want to build on what Ian said in terms of worrying a lot about all the things that could go wrong in different scenarios and painting all kinds of doomsday scenarios. What I mean, I go through that a lot, or been through that a lot. And what I found out that most of my doomsday scenarios never ever pan out that way, right? The doomsday never ever happens. So having been through this pattern multiple times where those things don't come to pass, the kind of the first aid kit for me that I've been trying to work on is, hey, this has never ever panned out, or this is likely not going to happen, right? Based on my past experience, and try to kind of start thinking of alternate scenarios, right? As opposed to doomsday scenarios, because I've seen the movie before and it has not happened. So that's my kind of go-to move these days. I don't always succeed, but I'm working on it.
Great. That's a good one. Thanks a lot. Next. Good. Gail?
Yeah, this is just something that's happened to me recently. As you know, I'm nearly always 10 on the peak performance indicator. Not much phases me, but one of my roles is I'm also a financial planner, and we have to do an exam. Now, I breeze through exams, never had a problem in my life. However, the failure rate on this exam is shocking. Everyone doing it is in practice as a financial planner. And so they said, you have to attend this session on how to pass this exam. And I'm thinking, why bother? That was the worst thing I could have done, attend it, because the positive energy is dead, absolutely dead. There is none. People who I know and respect as amazing financial planners have failed. This was 2 days ago, and I've got to do another one today, and it has thrown me off. It's this external thing with no positive energy, and I just am thinking, and then this morning I thought I was okay, and then we started talking about this, and I'm going, no, I'm not really. I'm still thinking, what if I fail? But I've never failed an exam in my life. Why am I suddenly thinking I might now? It is just such a crazy external force, and I'm trying to get my positive energy back so that I can go, oh yeah, it's a breeze, I'll be fine.
Yeah, I guess one of the things you could do is play this game in your mind and go, what's the best Gail to go into this test? One fritting around like a crazy person I am right now, or someone who believes in themselves?
Great, Greg, thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? We got just seconds.
Very, very quickly, Greg, just want to say it was really, really helpful. Thank you. I love all the verifiers and completers and avoiding providers sharing. It really helped me build my first aid. So thanks, everyone. And well done, Greg. It was great.
Thanks so much, Amanda. Appreciate it. Listen, one thing, for those who have the authenticate with me on the call, that we didn't do authenticate, that was on purpose so that the rest of us could learn more about others, so that we could be more helpful. All right, so you got a master class on not us, because we look after ourselves pretty well usually, right? So that was the intention. I'll sign off now. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I do, you guys, because I'm having a ball, and even thinking about it and preparing for it is terrific. So next week, Ian, do you want to say anything about what's happening next week?
Yes, I do. I have to take myself off mute. So yes, next week will be an ID masterclass, and so for everyone, obviously, the ID masterclass is really around honing our ID skills, and so we'll be sending out the notes today, as well as along with today's recordings, everyone that was there and has registered, and then the following week, the intention will be that'll be a game changer interview. I don't know who that will be yet, but we'll be letting everyone know who'll be on that call soon.
All righty. Thanks.
So thanks again, Greg, for facilitating.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Great job.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, bye.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye, Jose. Adios, Jose.
Bye.
Thank
See
you,
you guys.
Jim. Thank you. Oh, I forgot your name.
Rosemary.
See you, Greg.
Rosemary, thank you. Okay. Good to see you, Dougie.
See you, bye.
Thanks so much, Ian.
Pleasure, Greg. See you soon, mate.
All right, mate. Bye, Marie.
All right.